My parents and brother betrayed me, watching as my life fell apart. Now they beg for a chance. But I taught them a lesson they'll never forget. I stood in the middle of an empty apartment, clutching a faded photograph where we were all smiling, me, Mom, Dad, and Andriy. Just yesterday, I believed we were a family, that they were my closest people. But today, the truth hit like lightning. They had been lying for years, hiding a betrayal that destroyed my career, my reputation, my life. I learned they didn't just know about the schemes that framed me, they were part of them. My fingers trembled as I looked at the photo, their smiles now seeming fake. How had I not noticed this before? Why did they do it? And most importantly, how did I make them regret it? I threw the photo to the floor, feeling anger boil within me. It wasn't just pain, it was a need to act. They thought I was broken, that I'd remain a victim. But they were wrong. I was no longer the person I used to be. Every step they took, every lie they told, became pieces of a puzzle I was assembling to uncover their betrayal. I didn't rush. I knew my revenge would be cold and precise. It all started 6 months ago when I first sensed something was off. Mom, always open, began avoiding direct conversations. I'd ask about her work, and she'd mumble, "Everything's fine, sweetheart," nervously twisting her ring. Her voice trembled, her eyes dodged mine. I chalked it up to stress, her age, fatigue. But every time I tried to talk, she'd quickly change the subject or leave the room. One evening, I noticed her hastily hide her phone when I entered the kitchen. "Just a message," she said, but her smile was forced. I didn't believe her. There was something like fear in her eyes. I started recalling other details, how she stopped inviting me to family dinners, how she avoided talking about my job, though she used to be curious. These were small things, but they piled up like snow before an avalanche. I overheard her whispering to Dad late at night when they thought I was asleep. My name came up in their conversation, and I knew it wasn't a coincidence. Then there was Andriy, my younger brother. We were always close, sharing secrets, plans, laughing over nonsense. But he started disappearing in the evenings, not answering calls, and when I asked where he'd been, he'd reply vaguely, out on business or meeting friends. His answers sounded like excuses, and I noticed he got nervous when I pressed him. Once, I walked into his room, and he quickly hid his phone, as if afraid I'd see something on the screen. "What are you hiding?" I asked, half joking, but his eyes darted, and his smile was fake. "Nothing, just texting." He brushed it off, but I knew he was lying. I remembered how he used to share everything: work, girls, plans. Now he avoided talking, especially about my situation. When I lost my job due to a scandal, he didn't support me, didn't offer a word of sympathy. Just muttered, "It happens, bro." It stung. I began suspecting he knew something I didn't. I couldn't ignore the warning signs anymore. Dad started acting strange too. His office, once always open, was now locked. I knocked once, and he snapped, "I'm busy." I heard papers rustling, as if he was hiding something. Mom stopped inviting me to family dinners, citing exhaustion, though they used to be our ritual. Even Andriy avoided talking about my work or future. I felt them pulling away, as if I'd become a stranger. I decided to act. I started noticing small things: Mom quickly clearing papers off the table, Dad lowering his voice on the phone, Andriy hiding his laptop screen. I tried talking to them, but they brushed me off with vague phrases: "You're imagining things, everything's fine." My career had collapsed due to accusations I didn't deserve. I lost everything: my job, reputation, confidence. And my family, instead of supporting me, acted like they knew the reason for my troubles. I started jotting down everything I noticed: dates, times, odd phrases, snippets of conversations. I even installed a recording app on my phone. One night, I overheard Dad mention my company and the word deal. It was the first real proof they were involved in something tied to me. But when I confronted them, they all denied it. Mom looked at me with feigned offense. "How could you think that? We're your family." Her voice seemed sincere, but I noticed her hands clenched to hide a tremble. Dad was blunt. "You're overworked, son. You need rest, not conspiracy theories." Andriy just laughed, deflecting with jokes. "What? You're a detective now?" Their responses only fueled my anger. I knew they were lying, but without proof, my accusations would seem paranoid. I felt trapped. I saw signs of betrayal but couldn't prove them. Every look, every word felt like part of a game where I was the only one who didn't know the rules. I lay awake at night, replaying their words, gestures, conversation fragments. I tried bringing up my lost job, hoping someone would slip up, but they just nodded sympathetically, avoiding details. I knew direct pressure wouldn't work. They were too careful. But I wasn't giving up. So I acted decisively. One evening, when Andriy left his phone on the table, I seized the moment. In a chat with an unknown number, I found a message. He doesn't suspect yet. Keep it secret. My heart pounded. It was the first real proof Andriy was involved in something about me. I snapped a photo of the screen and put the phone back. I started watching my parents. Late at night, I overheard their conversation through a thin wall. Dad mentioned a deal and my name, and Mom whispered, "He can't know." My blood ran cold. They weren't just aware of my problems, they were part of them. I recorded everything I heard, noting dates and details. I installed a call tracking app, hoping to intercept their conversations. I caught Dad talking about the company and guarantees. I realized it was tied to the firm where I worked and the scandal that ruined my career. I checked their papers when left unattended, photographed documents, searched for clues. Each new piece of information confirmed my suspicions. They didn't just watch my downfall, they helped orchestrate it. But the evidence wasn't enough. A photo of a message, conversation snippets, suspicious documents, they were only hints. I couldn't confront them with these pieces and demand answers. They'd deny everything. Their behavior only confirmed my suspicions. Mom grew more withdrawn, Dad avoided work-related talks, and Andriy spent even more time away. I noticed Dad checking his office, as if looking for signs of my interference. I hired a private detective, a risky but necessary move. I gave him everything I had: message photos, recordings, company names. A week later, he returned with a folder that turned my world upside down. Contracts, emails, financial reports, all pointed to my parents and brother being linked to the company that framed me. They knew about the schemes that led to my accusations and profited from them. Dad signed documents, Mom handled negotiations, and Andriy was a middleman. I felt the ground slip away. How could they? I was their son, their brother, and they sold me out for money. So I realized I could trust no one. My parents and brother acted like nothing happened, but I saw their tension. I didn't sleep, analyzing their every move, every document. My notes grew: dates, names, account numbers. Everything pointed to their role in the scheme that destroyed my career. I gathered all the evidence: emails, contracts, recordings. But I didn't rush to expose them. I wanted them to feel the same helplessness I did. I contacted a journalist specializing in corruption scandals and anonymously sent him some evidence. Days later, news outlets mentioned the company tied to my family. Their names weren't out yet, but I saw their panic. Dad was on the phone more, Mom grew more nervous, and Andriy vanished for days. I knew they felt the news tightening. I kept gathering information, tracking their moves. I consulted a lawyer to file a lawsuit against the company. I wasn't just going to expose them. I wanted them to pay. I was no longer a victim. The naive boy who believed in family was gone. Pain and betrayal forged a new me, cold, strategic, ready to fight. I stopped seeing my parents and brother as family. They were enemies who deliberately ruined my life. I felt no pity or doubt. My emotions took a backseat to a clear plan. They thought I was broken when I lost my job, reputation, friends. But I used that time to regroup. I stopped answering their calls, avoided family gatherings, not out of fear, but because I was preparing. My apartment became my command center, a desk piled with documents, a laptop with emails, a phone with recordings. I sent the journalist more evidence, this time with names. I worked with a lawyer to prepare a lawsuit against the company and its accomplices, including my family. I didn't rush into confrontation. I wanted them to feel their world collapse, just like mine did. I changed not just inwardly. I stopped smiling for no reason. My movements grew confident, my voice firm. I learned to control my emotions, not letting anger or pain take over. Every step was calculated. I verified information, contacted the right people, prepared court documents. I arranged a meeting. They thought I wanted to reconcile, to return to how things were. Mom even cooked my favorite dish. Dad tried joking, and Andriy sat quietly, hope in his eyes. I entered their house with a folder in hand, calm and cold. They invited me to the table, but I refused to sit. "We need to talk," I said, placing the folder before them. Their faces changed as I opened it. It held all the evidence: emails, contracts, recordings, financial reports. "You destroyed my life," I said calmly, looking them in the eyes. Mom started crying, Dad tried to explain, and Andriy just lowered his head. I didn't give them a chance to justify themselves. I told them how I'd sent evidence to a journalist, how their names hit the headlines, how I filed a lawsuit against the company where they were complicit. Their careers, reputations, everything collapsed. They begged for a chance, made excuses, cried. But I only said, You made your choice. Now live with it. I walked away, leaving them in the same emptiness they created for me. They thought I'd forgive them, but I taught them a lesson they'll never forget.